Good morning. It's 5 o'clock, and I'm Joan Jones with your top stories. One more chance for federal workers to respond to Elon Musk's Tell Me 5 Things email.
Musk saying overnight that employees will get another chance to respond to his email, asking them to list their recent accomplishments. The original deadline to respond passed overnight. But Musk now saying, quote, failure to respond a second time will result in termination. Musk not elaborating on a potential second deadline.
ABC's Nicole D'Antonio there. The State Department says it'll respond on behalf of its employees. The FBI saying it's conducting reviews and will coordinate responses for its employees. And the Department of Health and Human Services have given its employees guidelines for how to respond. The Associated Press won't be returning to the White House briefing room anytime soon. A D.C. judge ruling that the White House is allowed to ban the AP for continuing to use the term Gulf of Mexico in its reports. In the ruling, Judge Trevor McFadden, who was appointed by Trump in 2017, said the AP can get access to the same information from pool coverage. A repeat convicted sex offender has been jailed in Nashville.
Police say 34-year-old James Josie III was arrested Friday night after getting caught in the women's restroom at the Hard Rock Cafe downtown. He allegedly admitted to recording a 16-year-old girl in a bathroom stall. Police say Josie has a history of doing this sort of thing. They say Josie was arrested in April of 2022 for recording several kids at a Whataburger in Hermitage while they were in the stall of a women's restroom. His first run-in with the law for this type of activity came in 2015 in Knoxville. Ken Weaver, WTN News.
You will be able to order the last cup of coffee in one Nashville Starbucks Friday. The Belmead Plaza location off Harding Pike is closing its doors as that plaza is getting ready to turn into a mixed-use development. In that location, there'll be 400 condos, apartments, green space, and some hotel rooms. Stock futures pointing down this morning. The NASDAQ futures minus 121. That's the latest news. We've got traffic and weather up next. I'm Joan Jones, WTN News. Hey, looking good right now. If you're on the roadways, you're not going to find any delays on the biggies. The 24, 40, and 65 all looking really good heading in so far this morning. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
5:05, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 89.7 WTN. Good morning to your friends. How are you? Welcome on in to your Tuesday, February 25th of 2025.
Good morning. It's 5 o'clock, and I'm Joan.
Why am I hearing that? Okay, so I'm...
Sorry about that.
Was that you, Joan?
That was me.
Okay, come on, Joan.
I'm sorry. I have on the YouTube channel, and it plays audio at weird times.
It's okay. Listen, Joan and I are a little flummoxed and a little... We don't really know how to report this story about what has been going on with the intelligence agencies, with all of this polyamorous talk, if you know what I mean. And
nod, wink, wink.
Polyamory. And so this is going to be interesting because most of this stuff I can't even really report on because of the content in Morning Drive. There's kids in the car and so forth. I will do so because this is a story that, you know what this is, Joan? Just if you're just getting up and you're just joining us, I guess this happened overnight where Eric and Gary were talking about this as well. And everybody's going to be talking about this in one way or another this morning. It's a bizarre story about how at the national security agencies, you have these employees that have been in government-sanctioned chat rooms under DEI, and they've been talking about like a bunch of really bizarre sexual stuff. Again, under the umbrella of DEI. This is your taxpayer dollars at work. You know what this really is, Joan? This is like the personnel version of USAID.
Yeah.
And I do wonder how many more of these stories are going to be uncovered. Because remember, one of your big stories today, Elon Musk is saying these folks, the federal employees, get one more chance to respond to that email from Elon Musk. He's asking really for very little. I mean, if you think about it, give me 5 things that you did last week. I mean, that's all. That's all they need to do. And so now we do have this battle going on over the email. But as all of that sort of takes shape and is in the news cycle, we do have this crazy story about polyamory or polyamory. Is that polyamory? Am I saying that right? I think it is.
Polyamor.
Polyamory. Can you look it up? I looked this up before
look it up.
Yeah, find the little lady that says polyamory or whatever it is. But if you don't know what that is, basically what it is a whole bunch of people who kind of like are swingers in a group, right? So you've got a group of people and they just sort of have sex with each other. I mean, that's basically what it is. Employees at the National, this is, by the way, from the enterprising reporter Christopher Rufo, and this is all over the place. Employees at the National Security Administration have been holding lurid sex chats in sensitive government chat rooms in the name of DEI. And so they were indeed sanctioned chats, like government approved, literally. A report by journalists Christopher Rufo and Hannah Goodman claiming the NSA agents engaged in wild chats on the NSA's Interlink messaging program featuring wide-ranging discussions of sex, kink, polyamory, and castration.
I mean, honestly, what's so wrong with that?
Yeah.
I just started my day back, and I have to. This is what we're starting with.
Listen, they've never worked in radio. You know, we talk about. Anyway, Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard was irate and promised to root out National Security Administration agents who held lurid sex chats in sensitive government chat rooms in the name of DEI. See, that's the thing. This was all sanctioned under Biden.
That's so stinking crazy.
It is. But is it surprising? See, this is why they have been so freaked out about the Trump administration getting in there and taking a look at what's going on. Because this kind of stuff.
And they couldn't unwind it fast enough before the administration took hold.
No, you know what's so funny? You would have thought Here's the funny thing. They have had since November to erase all this stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, they've had since November. Now, apparently these chat rooms, if you will, they have now been destroyed. But I do wonder. I mean, okay, they couldn't cover their tracks. I mean, we knew that Trump won, obviously, by November 6th. So why in the world did they not spend the last couple of months completely covering up their tracks? I mean, this is the national intelligence agencies. They say the revelations of chats about polyamory and castration came as President Donald Trump and Elon Musk's Doge continue their effort to purge the federal government of woke gender ideology. Oh, you know what I want to see, Joan? I want to see Maxine Waters and Chuck Schumer out
Defend
there
this. Yeah.
in front of the National Security Agency buildings protesting because they want to keep their group sex chats. That's what I want to see.
We do not have enough coffee for this.
A report-
I might need something stronger than coffee.
A report by journalists Christopher Rufo and Hannah Goodman claimed the NSA agents engaged in wild chats on the NSA's Interlink messaging program. And so what is polyamory? Polyamory is the practice of having multiple romantic and sexual relationships with the consent of all people involved. They also talk about polymules.
Huh?
In practice, it's polycule. A polycule, see, I don't know any of this.
It's actually kind of common nowadays, to be honest with you.
Polycule?
Well, no, just polyamory and these kind of relationships. If you go on like dating sites and stuff, a lot of these people are married and just looking for like a side dating hustle kind of thing. It's actually more common than you think.
With everybody, like the husband and wife, everybody knows?
Sometimes they date separate. Sometimes they don't need the husband or wife. They know, they're aware, and they also date separately. Sometimes they date separately. Sometimes they add it into their relationship. It's actually, unfortunately, very common.
You know too much about this, Jeff.
I'm in the dating world now, Joan. I'm in a very unfortunate situation. I'm in the worst time to date ever.
Listen, it actually sounds like there's plenty of opportunity out
Yeah,
there. I mean,
sure is.
nobody's committed to anything,
Sorry,
it would appear.
But the thing is, I'm not that kind of person. If I'm dating someone, call me crazy, I don't want them seeing other people.
So this also happened at the VA.
I was going to mention that, Joan.
Isn't that
Remember
crazy?
that? You and I
Yeah.
talked about this. In practice, a polycule is a group of non-monogamous people linked by romantic and sexual relationships that can be as big or as small as you can imagine. So it's like a throuple.
Yeah. Another term that we just should not know.
These chats, according to Rufo and Goodman, were legitimized as part of the NSA's commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. They quote agents who have claimed to have undergone feminizing, gender-affirming surgeries or gender reassignment surgery. So agents have gone through all of these surgeries, and then they're encouraged to talk about it on official NSA or government-sanctioned chat rooms that our taxpayer dollars are paying for. And by the way, a lot of this stuff I literally cannot talk about on the air. By the way, follow me on X at Dan Mandis Show. The Daily Mail, the original Daily Mail story is right there. And you'll see a lot of the things that they're talking about. Because, I mean, again, I feel uncomfortable talking about it on the radio because even at this time of the morning, kids are listening. Rufo and Goodman, though, said their sources claim that left-wing activists used LGBTQ plus employee resource groups to turn their kinks and pathologies into official work duties with the full support of their superiors at the NSA. Others talked about engaging in polyamory or ethical non-monogamy, with one claiming they were part of a 9-member polycule. Gabbard, who oversees the 18 American, Tulsi Gabbard, who oversees the 18, I could imagine, can you imagine like Tulsi Gabbard? She's been in charge for what, 4 or 5 days now? And this is what she walks into. Gabbard, who oversees the 18 American spy agencies, responded to the report promising to clean house. Yeah, there's not enough cleaning fluid
I was
to.
about to say we need to sterilize that.
Yes. How do you sterilize all of those agencies?
Wouldn't it be really great if the intelligence agency was focused on, I don't know, intelligence?
That would be great.
Yeah.
There's a lack of intelligence clearly in the intelligence agencies. They say that the NSA, they have these 18 American spy agencies, they have now confirmed the existence of the chats, which they say have been destroyed. This behavior is unacceptable, and those involved will be held accountable. Here's what I don't get. I'll talk about what I don't get coming up after traffic on WTN.
Well, really, there is no traffic this morning. Things are looking great so far in the major roadways heading in. I am not seeing any delays on 24 at all. Things are looking great on 40 heading into and 65 down there at Trinity Lane. No delays so far. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
516 as far as your weather goes today, a high of 66 and sunny. 40 degrees now at Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Where was the? Do you remember the details of that VA story, Joan? That we talked about a long time ago.
Really quickly, sure. It was
Pull
in
that up. It was in Tennessee.
near Knoxville.
Yeah, it was in Knoxville, and we had a bunch of folks that were working, if I'm not mistaken, for the VA, and they were doing all kinds of kink kind of stuff.
They had an
there.
orgy.
They did have an orgy.
Yeah, they had one guy. Do you remember this? They had one guy.
Yeah,
and it was a 12-person orgy. And that one guy said he had bedded some 32 of his coworkers.
Yeah, and I was shocked by that. I'm like, who?
Mountain Home VA Medical Center. Yeah.
There's a mountain of yuck in that place.
Yeah. A bargaining unit biomedical employee had sexual relations with 32 different women who worked at that facility.
I'm not sure if that guy should get fired or get a medal.
Yeah, I was going to say one guy did that. I can't hate on that. Respect.
Yeah. So
I'm not sure what to say about that. I mean, I was joking about, getting a pink slip or getting a medal. I can't imagine, is there enough, I think I said this at the time, there's not enough penicillin in that place to take care of all the VD that's got to be running around.
Well, I mean, you don't think he was careful? Or do you think he was just risking it?
I don't know, man.
Four of the people have quit. Several of the leaders have also recently quit their jobs.
I want to know when this guy goes to another job interview.
Yeah.
Why did you leave your last job? It's like, well, I slept with 32 of my coworkers.
You're hired.
You know what? If it's a guy who's doing the interview, I can see a guy being like, hey, you know what?
Dude.
Mad respect. Mad respect.
We got to get you a plaque.
Gabbard got back to what is going on currently with the spy agencies, responding to the report, promising to clean house and confirm the existence of the chats, which again have been destroyed, saying this behavior is unacceptable and those involved will be held accountable. These disgusting chat groups were immediately shut down when POTUS issued his executive order ending the DEI insanity the Biden administration was obsessed with. Our IC, intelligence community, must be focused on our core mission, ensuring the safety of the American people. Here's the thing, and this is, I guess, kind of where I land on this. Obviously, this is disgusting. And yes, I do believe that since this was actually sanctioned by the Biden administration, I think this is the opening salvo in probably a lot of baffling and disgusting behavior that we're going to find that was going on within our federal government under the Biden administration, under the guise of DEI. But here's the thing, Joan. Okay, so how exactly are you going to hold them accountable? This was sanctioned and encouraged by the Biden administration.
So is there a mechanism by which they can be fired for doing this, or because it was sanctioned, are they protected?
I don't know. That's the crazy thing.
It just
can you imagine the lawsuits? So that's what's going to happen is they're going to get fired, and then they're going to say, wait a minute. Our supervisors encouraged us to talk about our our polycule of 9 people. Probably, by the way, that polycule, the 9 people, I bet you they all worked there within the intelligence agencies.
Oh, yeah.
And so this was all sanctioned. This is our taxpayer dollars at work. By the way, Elon Musk also had a crack at the news and referenced his email asking workers to explain their duties each week. Well, at least we know what they did last week. Gotta love Elon Musk. It is 5:20. By the way, the Daily Dan poll. Watch us on YouTube. You can see Joan and I and KGB all squirm at this story. But watch us on YouTube and take the Daily Dan poll. Like and subscribe, and take the Daily Dan poll. The Daily Dan poll today, and there is a lot of news regarding the email gate. Would you, assuming you work in the private sector, would you have a problem with answering an email from your supervisor asking for 5 things you've done in the last week or something to that effect? How did we exactly word that?
Yeah, would you have a problem with your supervisor asking for 5 things you did last week? Just straight up, would you?
Yeah, straight up. Because, clearly you've got all of these. Wait till you hear the audio I've got today. So you've got all of these, federal employees, and they're crying about all of this. And people in the private sector are like, what exactly is the problem? And now they've got, days to do this. So I'm assuming it's like 100% people are saying they have no problem with answering an email like that.
Yeah, it's 90-10 right now. But I will say he did send that email on Friday, late Friday afternoon, and said by Monday. Mm-hmm. So
and now they have another 24
right.
hours.
My sister-in-law actually works for the VA. Mm-hmm. Like she actually does her job, properly. And like she was like, yeah, it's a little switch term because again, you have kids and church and that kind of thing. So there is that. It's a quick turnaround. So I agree with the extra 48 hours, but it shouldn't be too hard.
But see, here's the funny thing, though. The funny thing is they know the email came in because they're online complaining about it.
That's true. They should stop complaining and just do it.
5:22. Joan Jones has the news coming up at 5:30. Joan, will the word polycule or polyamorous be in your newscast at 5:30?
No, but the word sex will. No, just kidding. A decision on whether to rename Nashville's airport for President Trump. We've got that this morning. Nothing poly about that. And Kentuckians hit by flooding, they're able now to tap into some federal money for cleanup. We've got those stories and more coming up at 5:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Did you know you're overpaying for your health and wellness products?
With over 20 company-owned brands offering its members vitamins, supplements, wellness, and skincare products, you're able to save up to 70% off retail.
Members Nutrition can't change your life, but we can change the way you live.
527, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 89.7 WTN. Well, the comedy is already rolling into the Super Text line at 615-737-9986. Joan Rick says, we had a small polycule at our work. It was called a molecule.
Ah, that's cute.
That is actually very funny.
Yeah.
People complaining. The content of the first segment. Listen, here's the thing, and this is going to be interesting to see how people cover this. The whole thing, if you're just joining us, I can't go back and do the whole thing again, but you'll hear it throughout the morning. But this has to be discussed. See, the problem is that you're going to have a lot of people who, I mean, no offense to you folks that are complaining, but we're going to have a lot of pearl clutching of people saying, oh, why are you talking about this? It doesn't matter, and it's just, this matters. This is really an important conversation that has to be had. I mean, we can't, and no offense to folks, I don't know if people take offense to the term pearl clutching. I use it to describe both sides. But this is something that has to be discussed. It has to be thoroughly exposed.
And here's something from Elon Musk that I thought was interesting.
Yes.
This morning, just an hour ago, he posted, on one hand, Doge computer nerds review government data to eliminate waste and fraud. On the other hand, demented creeps at intelligence agencies spy on you at will. Which is of greater concern?
Boy, that's a great point by Elon Musk.
Yeah.
That ketamine must be kicking in. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Hey, if it works, no.
There, I see. You know what's funny about Elon Musk, and I don't exactly know what ketamine is, but people like say that he's on it. I don't know when he's more lucid. Is that when he's on ketamine or when he's off?
Isn't that what killed Matthew? What's it? The Friends star?
Matthew Perry.
Matthew Perry.
Yeah, that's
is that what killed Matthew Perry?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
I think it was a combination of drugs, but I think that was one of the main
ketamine
ones.
was one of them.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, we've got a lot more straight ahead that has nothing to do with the need for penicillin. Straight ahead on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Good morning. It's 5:30, and I'm Joan Jones with your top stories. We are fair skies right now, 47 degrees, but we've got a gorgeous day ahead with sunshine and highs in the upper 60s. Stick around for the forecast in a moment. The effort to rename Nashville's International Airport for President Donald Trump is dead for this legislative session. That bill was brought by Chapel Hill Republican Representative Todd Warner, who announced the bill was taken off notice, meaning it's not likely even to return to Capitol Hill. The cost may have been too much here. Metro Nashville Airport Authority estimating it would cost more than $10 million to change signage and to change operations. The acting head of FEMA, the director there, is taking a tour of flood-damaged areas in Kentucky today as damage assessments and road surveys in that state continue. Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear.
This has been a painful, difficult disaster. There aren't many natural disasters where we lose 22 people.
Families in Kentucky counties now have access to $43,000 of federal aid to help with the cleanup and recovery. Metro police expect a woman is going to survive after being shot overnight at the Richland apartment complex off Medina Avenue. That woman was shot in the arm around 1 o'clock this morning. The investigation underway. And years of inflation and a floundering economy has taken its toll on some big retail stores.
Store closures in the U.S. so far this year have exceeded 3,000, according to Coresight Research, up 420% in 2025 compared to this time last year. One of those big brick-and-mortar stores, Joann Fabrics, announced it's shuttering 800 locations after filing for bankruptcy in January. That includes 19,000 employees. Big Lots, Party City, Macy's, and Walgreens are also closing locations nationwide. Michelle Franzen, ABC News.
That's the latest news. We've got your traffic and weather just ahead. I'm Joan Jones, WTN News. Looks like just one trouble spot this morning, and it's on in Forest Hills on Hillsborough Pike at Harding Place. That crash there involving some injuries. Also, taking a look now, it looks like things are starting to slow down on 65 as you're heading in this morning. As you get near the Avondale area, Cumberland Heights, it looks like it's pretty slow there. That may just be volume. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
.536, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Good morning to your friends. Dan Mandis here, along with Jeff Malinoff, KGB, who returns from a big golfing trip. And people were asking about you, Jeff. Glad you're back. And, of course, we have Joan Jones here as well. And it's a Too Much News Tuesday is, I think, what we're calling this. And one of the things that I thought was interesting, Joan, as you and I were, because, every morning – Joan and I, we have a pre-show meeting, and we talk about all of the news stories that we're going to be covering of a given day. Mm-hmm. And I don't know about you, Joan, but I need some audio here, KGB. I don't know about you, but I'm really looking forward to playing this.
You are fake news.
At 8:35.
I am so excited to be able to do that.
For Chris Hand.
You are fake news.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I was just looking for some fake news.
There you go. That
shout out from the president.
You know what we ought to do? We should have the fake news update.
You are fake news.
And it'll be Chris Hand's opening theme song. Now, what is it that we're talking about? Yesterday during the 8:35, Chris was all over Philly Joan because the Eagles supposedly refused an invitation to the White House after they won the Super Bowl. And it turns out...
You are fake news.
It was fake news.
It was fake news.
Yeah.
Chris Hand was spreading fake news. And so I'm gonna play that for him when he comes in at 8:35. So y'all might as well go ahead and warn him because I know you do.
They haven't even been invited to the White House yet. The invitation hasn't even gone out.
How long does it take to send an invitation?
Well, when you're
I'm just wondering,
when you're so steeped in trying to get rid of polyamorous weirdos within your government, I'm thinking it may take a while.
It may take. You know what? How bad is it that the Philadelphia Eagles might be hesitant to come to Washington, D.C. because they don't know what they're going to catch?
It's kind of funny because Megyn Kelly tweeted out, "Go F yourselves, Eagles," because she thought the story was true.
Oh, no.
Yeah, she got behind the Eagles because her husband's really into it. So she got really into it, too, talking about it on her podcast. And she felt duped yesterday, so she issued that little...
Did she issue an apology?
I haven't seen that yet.
She should apologize.
Absolutely.
Because, if you're a conservative, I know that we are, it's difficult, right? Because if you're a conservative and you see a city like Philadelphia, it's riddled with anti-Trump, sanctuary city, DEI kind of stuff. And so you're not a big fan of Philadelphia. But Pennsylvania, Trump won Pennsylvania, and that was one of the big reasons why Trump won was because he won Pennsylvania and, frankly, all the battleground states. So,
a lot of us... any other big city, it's Philadelphia Eagles, but the fans are from everywhere around it, from New Jersey, from Delaware, from Pennsylvania, outside, the suburbs. And the suburbs are totally conservative.
Jersey girls like you.
Right.
Fans of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Right. So, and if you paid attention to during the Super Bowl, when the camera went up to President Trump, people broke out and clapping and cheering. So they love him.
So is anybody saying to Megyn Kelly?
You are fake news.
Yeah.
Anybody saying that to Megyn Kelly?
They probably should be, right?
You know, the thing is, I don't know how much, in fairness, I don't know how much. It came up during the 8:35. I don't know how much anybody else covered it on the station. I didn't even know about it till Chris brought it up. I do find it, and I did find it kind of funny that, it turned out to be fake news. And poor, the Philadelphia Eagles, they're probably getting absolutely trashed on social media by people like Megyn Kelly, who I have nothing but the utmost respect for Megyn Kelly. But, sometimes you just got to pump the brakes a little bit. I don't even know, where did that original story come from that turned out to be fake news?
It just became a social media viral story. Didn't necessarily, and this happens so often, right? So it didn't necessarily have to have, some truth, some legs to it. It just took fire.
And that's what happens.
Yeah.
And then you try to peel back the onion and figure out, how did all this begin?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, who started this is what you want to know. All right.
Sounds like an article from The Onion.
There you go.
I'll let myself out.
Did you happen to watch the end of the Joy Reid show yesterday? By the way, big news, Malinoff. Joy Reid got fired.
I texted my dad saying it's a miracle.
So
Free at last.
So this is how Joy Reid ended her show yesterday. She's a little unhinged, by the way.
Shout out to our amazing readers, our audience. I just love running into y'all in the airport, on these streets, and on social media. I could not love or appreciate you more. Thank you for holding us down. Almost 5 years. We are a toddler, and we out in these streets in this world, and we are not going to stop. That is tonight's readout. You can follow me on Blue Sky, Instagram, Threads, and on Substack at it's at joyandread.substack.com. Also on TikTok and Facebook at Joy Reid Official. Inside with Jen Psaki starts now.
And then she threw it to Jen Psaki, who had a little whatever. So that's how she ended it. Rachel Maddow went after the folks that work at MSNBC, the superiors that decided to pull the plug. So this is what Rachel Maddow said. Again, this was on the termination of Joy Reid. And this, at least to me, is an example of why the media is dying. Rachel Maddow.
And Joy is not taking a different job in the network. She is leaving the network altogether. And that is very, very, very hard to take. In all of the jobs I have had, in all of the years I have been alive, there is no colleague for whom I have had more affection and more respect than Joy Reid. I love everything about her. I have learned so much from her. I have so much more to learn from her. I do not want to lose her as a colleague here at MSNBC. And personally, I think it is a bad mistake to let her walk out the door.
No discussion on the fact that her ratings had literally been cut in half. Or that for the last, several years, her ratings had been down. Or the fact that she had turned into literally a national joke. Because everyone realized that every single story that she would cover was rooted in racism. And so, to me, Rachel Maddow talking about all this the way that she did, it's sort of emblematic of the problems that the Democrats have, generally speaking, which is they don't value merit. They don't value accomplishment. And I guess with Joy Reid, it's more important, at least to Rachel Maddow and some people on the left, it's more important to allow her to just call Republicans and Donald Trump and conservatives Nazis and racists and all of that nonsense rather than actually be, number one, factual about the stories, and number two, actually have a solid take. You know how many times I've said this, Joan, where it's like, how, as a talk show host, right, we have to come up with information. We have to come up with an opinion. Our opinion has to be based on some semblance of fact and reason. And Joy Reid, none of that applied. All she had to do was call people a Nazi, and that's all she had to do. You know how many times I said, what an easy gig that would be, right? Doesn't matter to Rachel Maddow.
I will tell you, it is also unnerving to see that on a network where we've got two non-white hosts in primetime, both of our non-white hosts in primetime are losing their shows, as is Katie Fang on the weekend. And that feels worse than bad, no matter who replaces them. That feels indefensible, and I do not defend it.
So she's actually, I guess, either intimating or flat out calling her employer racist. And again, all that entire spiel from Rachel Maddow it seems like it's based on skin color and not merit. It's based on the fact that Joy Reid, because you just heard her right there, that she's talking about people of color and how they were fired, and she can't defend that. Well, okay, but could you defend all of these hosts and personalities on MSNBC who happen to be black or whatever and happen to have really low-rated shows? And if you're on a network and you're making a pretty good chunk of change and your ratings are crap and you're a national joke, why should they keep you? See, this is the problem. Again, this Joy Reid story is emblematic of the problems that Democrats have, generally speaking, where they would rather accept mediocrity than have to go backwards on their passion for DEI, because that's this reaction that they have to Joy Reid's termination. Well, it's a mistake to let her go. Why? Well, because she's black. She's a black female. To me, it's absolutely astounding that anyone, I mean, have you looked at her ratings? Her ratings were literally cut in half. She was the lowest rated on MSNBC from the full-time schedule. So absolutely, she should have been fired. This is from Joy Reid's final monologue. Shocker. She goes out the way that she came in. Joy Reid.
How do you resist when fascism isn't just coming, it's already here? So what, if anything, can you do about it?
She sees fascism everywhere. She sees Nazis everywhere. And so that's the problem with Joy Reid. That's the problem with the Democrats. That was the problem with Kamala Harris. Because everywhere you turned, it was about DEI. Everywhere you turned, it was about fascism and how Donald Trump was a threat to democracy when everybody knew that he wasn't. And you can't say that the problem is a dying media or dying cable news media. It's leftist media. The reason is because leftist media is based in lies. Fox News is doing great. Greg Gutfeld, I think this is still a thing, isn't it, Joan? Isn't Greg Gutfeld still beating all of those, all of the Jimmys and all those other people on the networks?
He actually got the cover of Variety magazine.
Whole big thing.
I know, like crazy.
He's beating Jimmy Fallon, Jimmy Kimmel, Stephen Colbert. He's beating all of those people.
Because he's funny.
He's funny. He does present facts. He does present opinion. And by the way, he's not afraid to take out Democrats either. Or I should say Republicans.
Republicans,
he's
absolutely.
He's not afraid to take out Republicans. So part of the problem and the sheer difference between Greg Gutfeld and the humorless a-holes on MSNBC is, number one, MSNBC, you know what they are? They are humorless and factless, and they're a-holes. That's the problem with MSNBC. And Fox News, they're funny. They are moored in reality. And they've got great opinions, and they're not afraid to take out their own party. They're not afraid to say, oh, this Republican did this or that Republican did that. They're not afraid to do that. Greta Van Susteren, I've been talking about this the last couple of days because I don't like to enjoy or celebrate someone getting fired. I've been saying that for the last couple of days now since we knew that this whole Joy Reid thing was going to happen. Greta Van Susteren posted this. I don't enjoy someone losing a job, but when I got fired from MSNBC, Joy Reid liked the tweet of my firing announcement.
Classy.
She says, I hope the experience of being fired humbles her and she learns from it. And then she goes on and talk about things that she learned from her firing and so forth. So it is hard for me. It is hard for me to feel sorry for Joy Reid. She did say this. There was her last show, and then there was, I don't know what it was. It was almost like a social media post where she was talking about her dismissal.
But in the end, where I really land and where I've landed on today is just gratitude. Just pure gratitude.
You know, I was thinking about this, and I tweeted this out. I posted. I bet you have a lot of gratitude because you made a ton of money for race baiting every night, and you had the political analysis of a 7th grader. So I would be full of gratitude as well if I made millions of dollars phoning it in by just calling everybody, you know, racist and Nazis and all that other nonsense every single night and not really have to think about the things that you were actually talking about. Because to me, that personifies not only Joy Reid, but a lot of people on the left. And that's why Kamala Harris lost the election, because they were not rooted in facts. They were not rooted in reality. They were rooted in Donald Trump is a threat to our democracy. He's a Nazi. He's holding a Nazi rally at Madison Square Garden, Project 2025, all of these things that were simply not true, and they were simply talking points. So you can look at, and I've got some numbers that I'm probably going to do in the next hour, but you can look at the termination of Joy Reid on MSNBC, the fall of MSNBC, and the reaction to both, and you can zoom out and say, well, this is the exact same problem with not only Joy Reid and MSNBC, but the entire Democrat Party. Because they're not based in fact. They're based in platitudes and lies, and they are divisive, and they are part of the worst of America. While Donald Trump is trying to unite America towards a common goal of making America better for all Americans, all they want to do at MSNBC and Joy Reid and Rachel Maddow is divide America because they don't have the issues on their side. 5:52 on Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7. Joan Jones has the news coming up at 6. Joan.
Well, weapons detection systems are about to be installed in Nashville high schools. We'll tell you what the timeline is there. That's coming up at 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
5:56, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Good morning to your friends. Hope you are doing well. By the way, you can always watch the radio show on YouTube. That is how I believe that you should watch it. You can always rewind and fast forward once the show is over. You can watch it anytime you want. And so you can follow us on YouTube, Super Talk 99.7 WTN, Nashville's Morning News. I'm Dan. We have the daily Dan poll. And today, our question is, would you have a problem answering an email asking for 5 things you did last week from your supervisor? Obviously, a nod towards the Elon Musk and Donald Trump asking federal employees. And by the way, I've got a big update on this in the 6 o'clock hour. I'm pretty sure that most WTN listeners would say that no, they would not have a problem answering an email from a supervisor, even on a Saturday. Do you know what would have been funny, Joan? If they didn't send an email, they actually sent a massive group text. That would have really sent their heads exploding.
You know, I've heard it said that this was just a check-in to let us know you're alive.
Yep, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
Are you a real person?
Yeah.
That's part of the presentation in the next hour. But I got great audio from Donald Trump, and he's like, look, we got all these people that are getting Social Security that are not alive. How many people are collecting paychecks? I mean, think about it. Think about it this way, and I'm just spitballing here, but if you worked for the federal government, or let's say your father or your mother worked for the federal government and he or she died, is it possible that those people are still getting paid? I don't know. But based on what we've seen with the inefficiencies of the federal government, especially under the Biden administration, but this goes back decades. And so that's part of the desire here, is to figure out who is actually working and who hasn't, and who's not, who's alive, who's dead, that kind of a thing. It makes all the sense in the world. Hey, you know, Vivek Ramaswamy has officially announced that he wants to be the governor for the fine state of Ohio.
We need to end the wave of violent crime in our cities by empowering police officers to do their jobs with the proper training needed to do it well, while respecting our Second Amendment rights, which shall not be infringed. And that also means
watch this,
that we are going to bring back the psychiatric institutions that were wrongfully shuttered. This is a touchy subject, but I'm going to go there. I'm going to go there because it's the right place to go. It's important. Our jails can no longer be the first line of psychiatric care in this state. That is not compassion. That is cruelty to everyone involved, and we're going to put an end to it.
He is absolutely right. Trump has come out and said that as well. It is 6 o'clock, Super Talk, 99.7 WTN.
Good morning, 6 o'clock now. I'm Joan Jones with your top stories. It looks like that jam up on 65 southbound side was an accident. It's just before 24 downtown exit 86, and it's blocking off the right shoulder. We'll have more in traffic and weather right after the news. Weapons detection systems will be installed in all Metro Nashville high schools within 3 months. The Evolve technology detectors are costing MNPS more than $1 million a year to operate. Investigators still trying to determine a motive behind that deadly shooting and crash on Nolensville Pike yesterday morning. Meantime, people in the area are nervous.
Definitely. I mean, I'm standing in front of a coffee shop right now that I walk to sometimes. So that's really shocking that something like that could just happen so easily in this neighborhood.
Some new information on that shooting, too. It happened at a hookah lounge. 3 people in a car were shot. The 22-year-old driver is dead. The others being treated for gunshot wounds. Their car drove into a business on Nolensville Pike after the shooting. Tennessee nuclear development is taking shape. The Tennessee Department of Economic Community Development announced this week it's received 30 new applications for nuclear energy projects, totaling $80 million in state grant requests. Governor Bill Lee is proposing more than $92 million in new spending to help attract even more business. Tennessee is home to 229 nuclear companies. And a smoke incident on a Delta flight out of Atlanta yesterday. The FAA saying they were investigating and trying to figure out where it came from.
The 25-year-old Boeing 717 bound for Columbia, South Carolina, with 99 passengers and crew on board. But just minutes into the flight, the cabin filling with that thick haze. Delta saying the flight crew followed procedures, making an emergency landing. Passengers seen going down slides and standing on one of the wings.
We kept saying, well, how are we going to get down? And we had to go back in the plane enduring more smoke and then go to the other exit.
Atlanta Fire Rescue helping to evacuate the plane.
That's ABC's Gio Benitez reporting. Money News brought to you by Beacon Capital Management, online at beaconcm.com.
Falling tech shares dragged down the broader market on Monday. The S&P gave up 0.5%, while the NASDAQ Composite surrendered 1.2%. The Dow Jones managed a 33-point gain to close at 43,461. Shares in telehealth company Hims & Hers took another hit on Monday, despite a 95% leap in revenue last quarter. On its earnings call, Hims & Hers said it may stop selling the compounded weight loss drug semaglutide. The latest national activity index from the Chicago Fed points to a sluggish economy. Sliding production and slower spending pulled the gauge of economic growth into negative territory last month and below its long-term average. Blue Origin plans to launch its 10th space tourism mission from its West Texas site this morning, carrying 6 paying passengers on an 11-minute ride into suborbital space. The crew members include a venture capitalist, a Spanish TV host, a hedge fund partner, and a medical researcher. Jim Ryan, ABC News.
Stock futures all pointing slightly down this morning. That's the latest news, traffic, and weather next. I'm Joan Jones, WTN News. Well, no fun on 65 and on 24 heading in this morning in the eastbound side. It's right at Talbot's Corner, the 65 southbound lanes just before downtown exit 86. That's a crash blocking the right shoulder, and it's attracting a lot of attention. So big slowdown there. Injury crash on Hillsborough Pike at Harding Place. And then you've got a crash as well on Fessler's Lane at Lebanon Pike. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
6:06, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 89.7 WTN. Good morning to you, friends. Welcome on in to your Tuesday, February 25th of 2025. Hope you're having a great morning so far. It's going to get better with a great day today, a high of 66 and sunny. Appreciate you listening. Couple things real quick. Tuesday, March 4th, our big event. You want to check us out, 997WTN.com, the Nashville Palace. We are going to be collectively not only watching Donald Trump's State of the Union address, but it is a live broadcast as well. And part of what we're doing is we're celebrating the first 6 weeks of the Trump administration, and there is a lot to celebrate. And Brian Wilson is going to be there as well. So we've got myself, Chad Benson, Chris Hand, Matt Murphy, and Brian Wilson. All 5 of us will be there, and hopefully you'll be there as well. 997WTN.com for more information. That's number one. Number 2 is watch us, like us, and subscribe on YouTube. If you would, take the Daily Dan poll. Would you have a problem answering an email asking for 5 things you did last week from your supervisor? It's a pretty simple question, and that is not only the Daily Dan poll question of the day, but it is also how we're starting the 6 o'clock hour. The email controversy does continue. Now, over the last couple of days, we've heard from federal employees, right? I've played you all the audio, right? They're crying, they're upset, they're angry that they have to not only go back to the office, but also that they're expected to send emails, respond to emails documenting what they've gotten done in the last week. And that does continue. This was on CNN.
First, just tell us about this email and what it was like receiving it and what you all have talked about after getting it.
Sure. I got this email Saturday afternoon, about 3 p.m., and I felt absolutely infuriated getting this email with a demand within 48 hours to provide a response on what I did within the last week or face termination.
So there's a number of things here. Number one, I love how the question begins.
First, just tell us about this email and what it was like receiving it and what you all have talked about after getting it.
It's like they're talking to a kid that has been abused. I mean, give me a break. These are adults. You had 48 hours, I would say to this woman, who's this federal employee that is giving an interview on CNN. You had 48 hours to respond to an email. Does she realize how silly it sounds to be complaining about only having 48 hours to respond to an email? And I keep putting it this way. When a new boss comes in, I mean, we see this in radio all the time. When a new boss comes in, you have to hunker down and you have to impress. Joan, I bet you know what this is like. Anybody who's ever worked in the private sector understands how this works. It's not a radio thing.
Right.
It's a business thing. A new boss comes in, you have got to prove your worth to the new boss because there's a reason why things aren't working.
And I don't understand this. I'm too good for that. I'm too good to justify myself to the boss.
That's exactly right.
It's a crazy thing. And I keep reading these things from the federal government, from people who are within the government, saying that it's dangerous for Musk to do this because it's taking valuable time and focus away from their jobs.
Really? Because all the TV interviews aren't?
Right.
I mean, come on.
Right. And
this
how long
is clearly
does it take?
an attempt from Elon Musk to harass and bully and intimidate the federal workforce, which is part of his broader plan to gut the federal workforce and privatize public sector services to ensure that corporations like his own can get more profit. And that makes me really angry, and my coworkers as well.
First, just...
Do you know what's so funny, Joan, is I don't know if anybody who actually cares that they're angry or not.
I know. It's fun to watch, actually.
Oh, I think it's a hoot.
Yeah.
I mean, I do. And listen, I feel like I keep having to say this, but when we sort of mock the delicate sensibilities of these federal workers, not all federal workers are bad, right?
Yes,
I want to make sure not all federal workers are lazy. Not all federal workers are wasting time, wasting taxpayer dollars. But the way that a lot of these federal workers are behaving, it's a little sus. Why are you so afraid with answering an email, basically telling your boss what you did? And so the videos, of course, these kinds of videos all over TikTok and all over Instagram, all of these really upset federal employees.
Do you know how cool you sounded right there?
When I used the term sus?
Yeah, you sounded really cool.
Listen, I'm hanging out with Riker, an 11-year-old.
Oh, I see.
I'm picking up the 11-year-old vernacular. I'm not sure if that's a good thing, but there is a video that I picked up. You want to follow me on X, at Dan Mandis Show. And now there is an alternative narrative that is taking shape, and that is former federal employees. That's right, former federal employees who are sounding the alarm on the waste and the fraud and the laziness of some of these federal employees that they used to work with.
I used to be a federal employee, and I'm going to tell you why I don't feel bad for federal employees being forced to come back into the workplace.
Yeah, I mean, this woman, she is on fire. This was on, I believe, TikTok or Instagram. But you got these videos, and they're coming out from, again, former federal employees who are saying, yes, the fraud does exist. Yes, they need to be held accountable. And yes, it is time that that happens.
I worked for the Army Corps of Engineers for almost a year, and the abuses that I saw by government employees was astounding and shocking. When I was hired, my boss bragged that it was basically impossible to get fired from the federal government, and that in her entire time working for the government, she'd only seen one person fired, and that person assaulted a fellow employee.
Wow.
And she wasn't even fired for assaulting the employee at work. She was fired for lying about it because they caught it on camera.
So she's talking, and here's what I want to know. CNN is lining up all of these federal employees boo-hooing about having to answer an email. Do you think CNN is going to find this woman who is calling out the fraud and the waste and the abuse that and the incompetence that she saw when she did work for the federal government? No, CNN will not seek her out. CNN will not want her story told. I bet you Fox News would. I'm telling her story right now. So she's talking about how a lot of these employees, they did work from home, depending on tenure and some other factors. But she said that if they did work at home, if they were working at home, they may have been, air quote, working, but they really weren't.
I use the word work very loosely. One employee spent his time remote working, running his own farm. Another employee bragged about drunk driving and going out to lunch with her friends for margaritas when she was supposed to be remote working. No one would log into their computers, and you can see it because they're not on Teams, and no one ever checked.
Remember what Elon Musk said, and Joan and I were just talking about it. There were people who would never even bother to check email. Oh, there's more. There's a lot more. Details straight ahead at 6:15. Time to check the roads on WTN. .6:15 on Nashville's Morning News. As far as your weather goes, amazing day today. High of 66 and sunny. Right now, 39 degrees at Super Talk, 99.7 WTN. So there's been an alternate narrative that is now taking place on the socials because, you know, last couple of days since Elon Musk sent his now infamous email to employees saying, tell me what you did last week. It's very simple. And if you don't, then we'll consider that your resignation. All these federal employees boo-hooing and appearing on CNN and MSNBC, and I think the networks had some folks as well. Well, now I'm playing you audio from a former federal employee who is saying, oh, all of that fraud, that does exist. My question would be, how widespread is it? Because Elon Musk did say there are people, and Donald Trump said this yesterday as well, there's people that actually don't even bother to check their email. How do you even know they're living? So they're trying to root out all the people who simply are not working and who aren't answering emails, who simply are not engaged with their job.
There's something called the 80-20 rule, where 80% of the work in government is done by 20% of the people. And this is very, very true. People who get a job in the government a lot of times find out that it's very difficult to fire them, and they take advantage of this. One employee would come into the office, his start time would be 6:30, and he knew nobody would be there. And when I came in at 7:30 and I was the next person to come in, he was snoring at his desk every single morning.
I'm also noticing a pattern that just as there are so many egregious spending through USAID, there's a lot of egregious examples of our taxpayer dollars being wasted on government employees.
Another employee would take the government truck on an almost daily basis so that he could go out to lunch and then go and take a nap in his favorite park under a shady tree in the government truck.
I mean, who's going to investigate all this? I mean, somebody's got to get a hold. Maybe I'll try to get her on. I mean, I'm a local host in Nashville radio. Nobody cares about me, but I would love for like Fox News or somebody to get this woman on to talk about all that she saw, all of the rampant abuse. Again, we've all seen what's going on with USAID and the egregious spending that they've done. What about these stories of lax workers?
Our government is filled with the most incompetent and most lazy people and an occasional hard worker. And those hard workers are severely punished every time they outwork their colleagues, because then the colleagues realize people will see that they're lazy.
So it's really no surprise at all after listening to both Donald Trump and Elon Musk and listening to some of these federal employees who clearly can't believe what's going on. And I think it's obviously their attitude is one of entitlement. A job without accountability, a paycheck without performance. And now Donald Trump, he is saying, you know what? I back Elon Musk on all this.
You talking about the last email that was sent where he wanted to know what you did this week? You know why he wanted that, by the way? I thought it was great, because we have people that don't show up to work and nobody even knows if they work for the government. So by asking the question, tell us what you did this week, what he's doing is saying, are you actually working? And then if you don't answer, like you're sort of semi-fired or you're fired, because a lot of people are not answering because they don't even exist. They're trying to find, that's how badly various parts of our government were run by, and especially by this last group.
I mean, don't you want to know?
Bingo.
Don't you want to know, Joan, and you folks listening, and people who may even be federal employees? Don't you want to know how much waste there is? Because what they really need to do is they need to focus on getting rid of the bad employees and taking care of the good ones. You know, if that was me, you know what I would do? If I received that email on a Saturday, now the federal employees are in a bit of a bind, a bit of a pickle, because you've got Elon Musk and Donald Trump saying, and they now have a second opportunity to respond to the email. The problem is the head of their agency, depending on which one it is, the FBI, for example, or the Department of Defense, they're being told by their agency heads not to answer the emails. So Trump needs to get on board with, Pete Hegseth and Tulsi Gabbard and so forth, so that they can figure out if they're supposed to answer these emails or not. But if it was up to me and I got that email, I would be the first one to answer that email. Absolutely, on a Saturday. I'm going to raise my hand. I'm going to say, here's what I did. I did this, I did this, I did this, so on and so forth. Because I want them to know that I'm a hard worker. I want them to know that, you know what? Maybe what they do, if they've got, I'm going to whittle this down to an easy to manage number. Let's say the total number of federal employees is 1,000. But then you figure out that only 250 are really working, and the other 750 are not working. Then you know what you do? You fire the ones that are not working, and you give the 250 that are working more responsibility and one heck of a raise. That's what you need to do. That's just me talking, but that does seem to make all the sense in the world. Here's more from Donald Trump when he says he backs Elon Musk.
So what they're doing is they're trying to find out who's working for the government. Are we paying other people that aren't working? And, you know, where's all that? Where's the money gone? So I think it was actually, there was a lot of genius in sending it. We're trying to find out if people are working. And so we're sending a letter to people. Please tell us what you did last week. If people don't respond, it's very possible that there is no such person or they're not working.
So this is a number of things. It is a fact-finding mission. Who's actually alive and collecting a paycheck? Who's dead and possibly collecting a paycheck? And who is actually working? I appreciate what the Trump administration is trying to do. I do understand that there are some feathers that are ruffled. But ultimately, at the end of the day, we need to figure out who's doing the work, who's putting in the work, and who deserves accolades and more money. It is 6:23 on Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7. Super Text line is open, 615-737-9986. Guys, if you're feeling tired, motivation just isn't there, maybe some weight gain and muscle loss. Now, these could all be signs of low testosterone. It is time that you found out for sure with my friends at Low T Center. Now, they make it easy to get your levels checked. It is just a simple test, and with their on-site lab, you're going to get your results back immediately. That's one of the many things that I love about Low T Center. Now, this isn't your typical doctor's office. They simply specialize in treating low T with testosterone replacement therapy, or TRT, for each individual patient. Now, they've been helping patients for over a decade, and their treatment plans are optimized for each patient. Personalized just for you. There's nothing standard about Low T Center. Everything is customized for you. And at Low T Center, you can also get your health evaluated for treatment with prescription GLP-1 weight loss medications. So get back to your best. Go to lowtcenter.com to book your appointment today. That's lowtcenter.com. Low T Center, reinventing men's health care. 624 on Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Joan Jones has the news at 6:30. Joan, what's coming up?
Hey, we'll take a look at where Tennessee's Tim Burchett stands on the One Big Beautiful Budget Bill. Also, President Trump taps a Tennessee native for his pardon czar. Those stories coming up at 6:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
.626 on Nashville's Morning News. Friends, you only have a couple of days left until February is over, and this great opportunity from the Glock store is gone. Listen, February, the month of Valentine's Day. Nothing says love like gunpowder and lead, which, again, is what you find at the Glock store. Now, with the month of Valentine's Day, you can get a great deal at the Glock store. You and your significant other can go get a couples training session in their Shoot 270 indoor shooting rooms. This is where I learned to shoot. The Glock store is where I bought my gun. Now, you can book a couples shooting session at shoot270.com. When you show up, you mention my name, Dan Mandis, and you both get trained for the price of one. 2 for the price of 1 when you mention my name. Book it at shoot270.com. Now, remember, this is a private shooting room with a personal instructor, a professional that is going to tailor the session to your current level of shooting expertise. And whatever level you're at, they will up your game. So remember to book that 2-for-1 Valentine's date at the Glock store. Book it at shoot270.com. You mentioned my name, Dan Mandis. The Glock store, minutes from the airport and worth the drive from anywhere. Shoot270.com. .629, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Joan, you should see the super text line.
Oh, yeah?
At 615-737-9986. I was going off on federal employees, which I'm really trying not to do, but it's a little hard not to. I'm getting inundated with people who either work for the federal government, have worked for the federal government, or their spouse and so forth works for the federal government, and they're saying the audio that I was playing of that former federal government employee, that's not isolated. That's not unique.
Right.
What she is describing actually is widespread within the federal government. I've got that story for you and a whole lot more straight ahead right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Good morning to you. It's now 6:30. I'm Joan Jones with your top stories. Stick around for traffic and weather on the way. Among the Republicans who are voting no on the budget bill being presented in the House of Representatives, Tennessee's Tim Burchett. He says that bill does not reduce spending enough for him. Still, House Speaker Mike Johnson believes he can gain Burchett and 2 other Republicans and talk him into voting yes this week.
This is a prayer request. Just pray this through for us because it is very high stakes, and everybody knows that. If you're a small business owner, this is a very challenging time because you don't know what to expect. The markets don't know what to expect. The bond market doesn't know what to expect. So putting that clarity in as early as possible is critical. So the way to do that is with one big, beautiful bill.
Now, that bill calls for $1.5 trillion in spending cuts and more than $4 trillion in tax cuts. Republicans can only afford to lose one vote to advance anything. President Trump has appointed Tennessee native Alice Johnson as his so-called pardon czar. You may remember her from 2018 when Trump pardoned her after a high-profile campaign from Kim Kardashian. Well, now she's doing the same for others.
I advocated for them right in the Oval Office. It wasn't me sending him a list. He wanted me to come and meet with him and talk to him. Even when we was on Air Force One, I flown on Air Force One with him. And while on Air Force One, he told his wife, Melania, he said, Alice just convinced me to set 5 people free. Can you believe that?
Now, Johnson's also working on programs that help people get engaged in society after they've been released from prison. That is the latest news, traffic, and weather next. I'm Joan Jones, WTN News.
Pick a Joan, Dan Mandis here. United Structural Systems. Listen, we've had snow, we've had rain, a lot of moisture. How's your basement doing? How's your crawl space doing? You got any water down there? You better check, because if you have even the slightest of cracks in your basement with the snow and the rain that we've had, you could end up with mold and wood rot and the need for structural repair. Now, my friends at USS, United Structural Systems, I'm reminding you that they are Middle Tennessee's experts in waterproofing, basement wall stabilization, and yes, foundation repair as well. They've been doing this for over 30 years, and yes, they've got over 30,000 satisfied customers, including yours truly. I've been a client of United Structural Systems for years. Now, their inspections are absolutely free, and they're not going to sell you any unnecessary repairs. They are simply here to help. We guarantee our best. Call USS 615-499. I should say 615-488-7855, 615-488-7855. You can always find them online, USSTN.com. That's USSTN.com.
Still dealing with that problem and accident this morning on 65 as you're making your way into like the Cumberland Heights area, inbound on 65 and 24 this morning. Big backup there on 65. Watch out for that. Also got a ladder in the roadway on 840, the eastbound lanes at Carter's Creek Pike. That's exit 23. Be careful traveling around that. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
6:35, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Mark Spain Real Estate. Sell your home with a guaranteed offer from Mark Spain Real Estate. You can receive the strongest cash offer in the industry. You're going to save time and make the most money. Now, with the guaranteed offer from Mark Spain, you can skip the hassle of getting your home ready to sell, receive an all-cash offer, and close in as little as 21 days. There's no showings, no open houses, and no stress. Now, one of their clients, Jerry, said, we needed to move quickly and we were worried the process would be lengthy and we would spend a lot of money on repairs. Mark Spain Real Estate got us an offer in just 3 days, and it was over the asking price. It was amazing. Friends, selling your home is a big decision. Who you work with matters. As the most experienced real estate team in the industry, you can trust my friends at Mark Spain Real Estate to sell your home fast and for maximum profit. Find out what your guaranteed cash offer would be on your home today. There's no obligation. 855-299-SOLD. 855-299-SOLD. You can also find them online anytime. It's markspain.com and start packing. .637, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Good morning to you. How are you? So I have love and hate coming from the Super Text line. So 9633 is saying WWTN is the new CNN.
What?
You treating government workers like CNN treats Donald Trump. How many times do I have to say? Not all government workers. You know what? Maybe I should put it on a hashtag. Then it'll be official. Not all government workers. By the way, we don't do WWTN. It's WTN. We only use WWTN when we're in trouble. Here's another one. This person coming from Massachusetts saying, I worked at the Nashville Federal Building. I saw government waste all the time. These employees would show up and 15 minutes later come back down and go for a walk or a smoke, go back up. That took them after showing at least a half hour off already. You would see this all day, up, down, going for a smoke, going for a walk, etc. Then they were told if they are stressed, they can go for a walk. Then they would leave for lunch and then leave around 3:30. Nothing can get done when you're constantly leaving your desk and talking. It's an overpaid party, and it ticked me off, says 2626. 1913 out of Tennessee. I am a current federal employee. The waste is real. I am amazed, and the word amazed to Joan is in capital letters. I am amazed at how much our government throws away, both in material and labor. These are my taxpayer dollars, too. So I say, keep bringing it, Elon. There you go.
You know, when I lived in the Washington, D.C. area to work in Washington, you knew that you better be on the road. The Beltway is the big road around the Capitol.
Right.
You better be on the Beltway before 2 o'clock, because at 2 o'clock, the feds get out and the highways are jammed. They only work till 2.
That must be nice.
The ones that do go into the office.
In at 10, out at 2.
Correct.
With a lot of smoke breaks in between and coffee breaks as well.
Yep.
8842 out of Manchester. It happens here as well. I worked for the state for 7 years. I worked for higher education as well and the Tennessee Department of Corrections. It is so bad, he or she says. I quit my dream jobs because of the rot. I reported it at one point, and my supervisor said they allot for 17% waste in the budget. He then asked me why I was wasting time following the other guy around. That's one of the things I've noticed in a lot of this reporting is if you called out the federal government and you were like, okay, so there's all this waste and these people aren't doing their jobs, you are the one that got in trouble. Snitches got stitches with the federal government. So anyway, this is going to be an ongoing conversation. And I cannot stress to you enough, friends, that I just said in the previous segment, if you've got 1,000 government employees, only 250 are actually doing the work, then fire the other 750 and give the 250 a raise. Because, you know, I've got people who I like and I've met at station functions and so forth, and they do work for the federal government. And they're telling me that, you know, they didn't like getting this email and so forth, but they're telling me about how their day is and how busy they are. And my statement back to them would be, well, tell somebody. Tell Donald Trump. Tell Elon Musk. You are literally an actual essential employee. Because what we need to do is take care of the essential employees, right? At least that's what does need to happen. Real quick, there's a lot of news going on today. Did you hear what's going on with Apple? This was a very big deal. So Apple yesterday, this actually came out, I think, right as we were coming on the air. But
no, I did it yesterday in the news.
You did it yesterday?
You know, the news you don't pay attention to.
Who are you again? Reaction to Apple's massive announcement, $500 billion investment. So Donald Trump's, they say, first 100 days continue to be fruitful, with Apple announcing they're spending $500 billion here in America. They're going to hire 20,000 people over the next 4 years. A lot of people are reacting to this. Now, this originally was from a story in Axios. The tech giant plans to inject over $500 billion into American innovation and advanced manufacturing. You know what's behind this is tariffs. Advanced manufacturing, creating 20,000 new jobs across multiple states. This move is framed as a significant victory for President Trump's push to bring manufacturing back to the U.S., and Apple CEO Tim Cook emphasizing the company's optimism about American innovation. Now, Mike Allen is one of the main guys at Axios. I actually like him a lot, and he explained this further.
This is a landmark story for a couple of reasons. One, the effort by the president to bring manufacturing back to the U.S., this is a massive commitment to that. And as we say in our story, this gives Trump the leverage to say to other companies, Apple can do this. Apple is bringing these jobs into the U.S. Apple is investing in the U.S. Why can't you?
Yeah. And so part of what Apple is going to do, they're going to build a new advanced AI server near Houston, Texas. That's thousands of jobs right there. In Michigan, and by the way, pay attention to these states. Michigan, Pennsylvania, Nevada. Apple is spending $500 billion in really important states politically. And if it wasn't for Donald Trump and his tariffs, this wouldn't be happening. So Donald Trump, these states, I'm going to frame it this way. These states are seeing immediate dividends in supporting Donald Trump. In Michigan, they're going to establish a manufacturing academy to train future manufacturers. These are going to be free courses, by the way, working with local business leaders to learn how to build here in America. In Detroit, by the way, a city that is in desperate need of help. Chip production in Arizona, facilities in California, North Carolina, the state of Washington, and others.
There's an incredible footprint for this. This is all across the United States, and it's part of the big story that Axios has been telling, that it's no longer just the coast. Look at where some of these big investments are. The swing states of Arizona, Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Nevada, red states, the massive investment that you were talking about in Texas, a big innovation lab in Michigan. So a footprint all across the country. And third, if you look at how the U.S. is going to have a sustained recovery, it's going to be about building things, making things, doing that more in the U.S. This is a big step toward that.
Absolutely. Now, more winning from Donald Trump. What does the president have to say about this? Details straight ahead, 6:45. Time to check the roads on WTN. Your weather today, a really nice day with a high of 66 degrees. Sunny as well right now, 41 degrees. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. So talking about Trump, his tariffs, the impact of tariffs, and the reporting on this. Just Google the headlines. A lot of places reporting that Apple was trying to avoid Donald Trump's tariffs. That's why they're spending $500 billion for manufacturing and development here in America, as opposed to in other nations across the world. They're trying to avoid the tariffs. The story underscores the strategic timing aligning with Trump's manufacturing agenda and highlights Apple's existing support for nearly 3 million U.S. jobs through its operations and supply chain. Tim Cook, of course, his recent meeting with Donald Trump in the Oval Office further ties this announcement to the administration's goals, with Donald Trump, of course, himself praising the investment as a testament to confidence in his policies.
Now, Apple tends to roll out these type of massive U.S. investment plans every few years, but this is the biggest one yet. And it's also 45% more than what they committed during the Biden term in 2021.
Yeah, and part of what Tim Cook said is that this is really a statement as far as Donald Trump's America. He is bullish on America. He is bullish on what Donald Trump wants to do with America and bringing jobs and manufacturing back here. See, that's part of the point of these tariffs. You just heard the audio from Mike Allen, and he's saying that Apple and Tim Cook, they like what Donald Trump is doing. The reporting goes that he wants to avoid those tariffs, the cost, the additional cost of, importing into America. And so why not just build here in America? Now, I know there's going to be a lot of people that are going to say, well, we don't know what this is going to do to the price, for example, of an Apple iPhone. I don't know that either. We'll have to wait and see how this whole thing shakes out, because we truly are in uncharted territory when it comes to tariffs. But we did know that something was brewing last week with Donald Trump and Tim Cook as they were talking about this really good meeting that they had. And by the way, Tim Cook and Apple, this is just the latest in a long line of companies and entrepreneurs, billion-dollar companies that have made announcements that they are going to manufacture and try to develop here in America as opposed to overseas. And this is part of what Trump said.
Tim Cook in the office from Apple, he's investing hundreds of billions of dollars. I don't know. I hope he's announced it. Hope I didn't announce this, but what the hell?
He actually did.
All I do is tell the truth. That's what he told me. But he's investing hundreds of billions of dollars, and others too. We're going to have a lot of chip makers coming in, a lot of automakers coming in. They stopped 2 plants in Mexico. They were under construction, starting construction. They just stopped them. They're going to build here instead because they don't want to pay the tariffs.
Right. I mean, remember that Trump had announced 10% tariffs on all imports from China, where Apple makes a lot of products, including iPhones. Everybody knows that. So why not just avoid the tariffs and have some of these parts and have some of this done here? So Apple was facing, of course, I just mentioned, massive tariffs, and they clearly wanted to avoid that, but they still have a lot of other items built overseas. But let's be honest. I mean, this is a huge start.
I got myself in a lot of trouble. I said it's my favorite word in the dictionary, the word tariff. It's such a beautiful word. And the fake news killed me. They said, what about love? What about God? What about family? And they said, I'm in trouble. I said, so now it's my 4th favorite word. I said, love, God, family. Just a couple of others I could add in there too, but it's my 4th favorite word, so.
And by the way, we do have some big news coming up regarding tariffs right before the news coming up at 7 o'clock here on Super Talk 89.7. Dan Mandis here. Listen, if you've got a piece of land, maybe a property that you don't know what to do with, think about putting up a pole barn from my friends at Stoltzco. I know that putting up a pole barn could increase the value of that land big time, and they're flexible. You can use a pole barn for anything. You can use it as an equestrian building, an event space, a garage. You can even live in it. We call those barn dominiums. Now, you can also plan ahead and build your retirement home. Call these folks at Stoltzco. Tell them Dan Mandis told you to reach out. Tell them what you have in mind, and they are going to give you an estimate, maybe some ideas right over the phone. 615-622-5992 for Stoltzco. 615-622-5992 for Stoltzco. You can also find them online Instagram, Facebook, or at their website, STOLTZCO, stoltzco.com. .653, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I've been called out by one Joan Jones on X.
She couldn't even say it to your face. She had to go through X.
She did. Is she not? She's not listening, apparently.
I am now. I heard my name.
So we're talking earlier about the polyamorous chat rooms.
Yeah.
There in the intelligence agencies. We'll revisit that. And so somebody posted on Twitter something about how WTN clearly doesn't have these kinds of chat rooms on Nashville's Morning News. And Joan Jones calls me out. The man doesn't even like to hug. Talking about yours truly.
We're in separate rooms for a reason. It's not because the studio is set up like that. Dan requested it like this.
He doesn't want to be in the same room.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's why we're all three in separate rooms. He can't handle people in the same room.
7 feet of barrier between me and KGB. That I put that in my contract.
Yeah, a 5-inch thick piece of plexiglass and everything.
Exactly right. That is exactly
COVID was
right.
his dream.
You
Everyone
can't
was
even
so far
see
away from
me.
each other.
That's how far away.
You know,
we
the
are.
funny thing when COVID happened, the joke around the station was that I've always practiced social distancing. So, yeah, not a problem.
It was his dream situation in a sense.
So the Donald Trump, talking about the tariffs is real quick. Donald Trump talking about the tariffs, and we talked about Apple and how this is a big victory for Donald Trump. It really is a victory for Donald Trump. Well, now he has also announced, need some audio, KGB, that apparently Trump is going to be imposing those 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico. That's going to happen next week. That's what Trump says. Yep.
We were led by, in some cases, fools, because anybody that would sign documents like they signed, where they were able to take advantage of the American people, like has happened over the last long period of time, except for a little 4-year period that took place 4 years ago. Anybody that would agree to allow this to happen to our country should be ashamed of themselves.
Yep, that is Donald Trump. We've talked about the trade deficits ad nauseum. And so Trump is decided, even though Canada and Mexico did, they will tell you, apparently it wasn't enough, try to help with our issues on the northern and southern border, respectively. Trump says he's still going to be imposing those 25% tariffs, and that is going to happen next week. Now, what we don't know is, okay, so is this just another negotiation ploy? I don't know if it is or not. By the way, if you're wondering, I've got to keep this in mind. What in the heck we're all talking about with a comment regarding polyamorous chat rooms. It might not be for little ears, but I'm going to tell you one of the biggest news stories of the day that I don't believe that CNN has covered at all. But I'm going to talk about it because it does need to be exposed. It's a very, very big story, and it's coming up after the news at 7 here on Super Talk 99.7. So Canada, of course, announced that they were going to utilize $900 million in border security when Trump said, I need more help on the border, northern border, and if you don't, I'm going to hit you with a 25% tariff. So Canada, remember this? Justin Trudeau, he literally flies to Washington, D.C. No, maybe it was Mar-a-Lago. But wherever it was, he immediately gets Trump on the phone, flies out, kisses the ring, bends the knee, all of that. And they pledged $900 million in border security, more personnel on the northern border, et cetera. Mexico also said that they would be partnering with us on more personnel and drones, et cetera, going after the drug cartels. But again, that appears like it wasn't enough for the president because he is going to go ahead and tariff both Canada and Mexico 25%.
We've been mistreated very badly by many countries, not just Canada and Mexico. The tariffs are going forward on time, on schedule. This is an abuse that took place for many, many years. And I'm not even blaming the other countries that did this. I blame our leadership for allowing it to happen.
So Mexico and Canada, they're talking about how Trump keeps moving the goalposts and nobody knows what's going to be good enough for Donald Trump. And they can't seem to make Donald Trump happy. So listen, this is what Donald Trump does. He wants a better deal for America. And I'm all for it. I really am. I know that there's a lot of people that think that he's just being difficult. He's a bull in a china shop on the world stage. Whatever. Here's the thing. Whether it's the Apple announcing that they're going to have a $500 billion investment in America, building stuff, creating jobs, creating artificial intelligence programs, and all that goes with it, this is a very big deal. And as I was saying earlier, I want to make sure that Donald Trump remembers, and most certainly he will, that Apple came in and they created all of these jobs in states like Arizona, Nevada, Pennsylvania, Michigan, important states that Donald Trump won in 2024 and Republicans are going to need moving forward. It is 7 o'clock. Dan Mandis here on Nashville's Morning News. Super Text line is open, 615-737-9986, 615-737-WWTN. Got a lot more straight ahead.
Good morning. It's now 7 o'clock. I'm Joan Jones with your top stories. Still pretty slow this morning on 65 inbound, all the way from Dickerson Pike through Fern Avenue area this morning. An earlier accident, also a crash in East Nashville on Ellington Parkway at Trinity Lane. pretty slow in that spot, too. We'll have more in traffic and weather in the moments ahead here. One more chance for federal workers to respond to Elon Musk's Tell Me 5 Things email.
Musk saying overnight that employees will get another chance to respond to his email, asking them to list their recent accomplishments. The original deadline to respond passed overnight. But Musk now saying, quote, failure to respond a second time will result in termination. Musk not elaborating on a potential second deadline.
That's ABC's Nicole D'Antonio. Now, the State Department told its employees that it would respond on their behalf. The FBI said it's conducting reviews of its own and will coordinate responses for its employees. The Department of Health and Human Services has given its employees guidelines for how to respond. The Associated Press will not be returning to the White House briefing room anytime soon. A D.C. judge has ruled that the White House is allowed to ban the AP for continuing to use the term Gulf of Mexico in its reports. In his ruling, Judge Trevor McFadden, who was appointed by Trump in 2017, said the AP can get access to the same information from pool coverage. A repeat convicted sex offender has been jailed in Nashville.
Police say 34-year-old James Josie III was arrested Friday night after getting caught in the women's restroom at the Hard Rock Cafe downtown. He allegedly admitted to recording a 16-year-old girl in a bathroom stall. Police say Josie has a history of doing this sort of thing. They say Josie was arrested in April of 2022 for recording several kids at a Whataburger in Hermitage while they were in the stall of a women's restroom. His first run-in with the law for this type of activity came in 2015 in Knoxville. Ken Weaver, WTN News.
More changes coming to Starbucks, the coffee company revealing 13 drinks that are being cut off from the menu starting Tuesday. It's an effort to simplify the menu and focus on the popular items. Yesterday, Starbucks announced it would lay off 1,100 corporate employees. Would you want Nashville hot chicken to be an official state food? Democrat state lawmakers Caleb Hemmer and Charlene Oliver working to add Nashville hot chicken to the list of official state foods. Two other Democrats, Vincent Dixie and Jeff Yarborough, want to designate Music City as the hot chicken capital of Tennessee. I guess there's some pretty hungry legislators. Market Numbers Report brought to you by Beacon Capital Management, online at beaconcm.com. And stock futures this morning mixed with the Dow futures up 52. We've got NASDAQ futures down 30, and the S&P futures are minus 1 point. That's the latest news, traffic, and weather next. I'm Joan Jones, WTN News. Got a crash Ellington Parkway southbound at Trinity Lane, and it's blocking the right shoulder, slowing things down there, too, this morning. Also, 40 eastbound at Old Hickory Boulevard East, exit 221B, a crash blocking the right shoulder. Still pretty slow this morning on 65 inbound as well. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
.706 Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. How are you? Good morning. Thanks for being here. February 25th, 2025, and Dan here along with Joan Jones. KGB is back from a golf outing, and this is a really awkward story to tell. But I'm going to do it because it has to be exposed, so to speak. So there is a story, and this came out overnight. And I'm just going to tell you what it is, and then we'll get into some of the details. Apparently, there has been a government-sanctioned polyamory chat line going on within the national security agencies. Now, this is bizarre, and if you don't know what polyamory means, basically it means group sex. So this is bizarre. So as Donald Trump and Elon Musk try to figure out who was at work and who wasn't, and emailing federal employees to list 5 things that they did last week, this story blows up overnight from enterprising reporter Christopher Rufo. Now realize, everything that I'm about to tell you is government sanctioned, paid for by your taxpayer dollars. The people partaking in this horrific chat line, the people that paid for this thing to be created, the IT people, whoever created it, all of this paid for from your taxpayer dollars. From the Daily Mail. Employees at the National Security Administration have been holding lurid sex chats in sensitive government chat rooms in the name of DEI. I kid you not. So these were actually sanctioned chats, like government approved. A report by journalists Christopher Rufo and Hannah Goodman claiming that NSA agents engaged in wild chats on the NSA's Interlink messaging program featuring wide-ranging discussions of sex, kink, polyamory, and castration. Yep. Paid for by your taxpayer dollars. Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard was irate and promising to root out National Security Administration agents who held these lurid sex chats in sensitive government chat rooms in the name of DEI. The revelations of chats about polyamory and castration came as President Donald Trump and Elon Musk's Doge continue their effort to purge the federal government of woke gender ideology. And so you have Christopher Rufo and others, and they're talking about all of this. And it's really bad. You know, I made the comment earlier that I think that the outrage that we're seeing with USAID and the government spending, I think that we're going to now start seeing the examples from a personnel standpoint. This is one of them. So they talk about these chats about polyamory and castration and how all of this was happening as they were supposed to be working. These people with the various intelligence agencies, they're supposed to be working, and they're talking about this in chat rooms. A report by Christopher Rufo and Hannah Goodman claimed the NSA agents engaged in the wild chats on the NSA's messaging program, and they talk about all of these things. Now, if you don't know what polyamory is, I think I'm saying it right. Maybe I'm saying it wrong. polyamory is the practice of having multiple romantic and sexual relationships with the consent of all the people involved. So it's like swingers, basically, right, Joan? It's basically what it is. It's swingers.
I think that sounds about right. The big old pineapple on the federal government.
Listen, if it's good enough for West Haven, it's good enough for the NSA.
That's right.
I unfortunately know way too much about this. It's not exactly swingers. You can actually be in like relation. It's not just hookups. It's more.
Yeah.
You can be in relationships with more than one person together. It's really bizarre.
Yeah, that's what they call polycule. So in
polyamorous
polycule, they say in practice, because polycule is also mentioned. In practice, a polycule is a group of non-monogamous people linked by romantic and sexual relationships. It can be as big or as small as you can imagine. So it can be like a throuple.
Yeah. There's something on Snapchat. I got off of it a while ago, but I remember it's something called Love Don't Judge, and they show these bizarre kind of situations. And one of them was like this throuple that was together and somehow got married.
Yeah,
I didn't know you could actually get married with more than one person.
You can't
but
legally.
Well, I guess they tried. I don't know how they.
Well, here's the crazy thing, that all of these conversations were legitimized as part of the NSA's commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. So can you imagine if here at WTN, right, they went